welcome everyone to this masterclass on HPO axis. And this is going to be a super important session as far as the neuroendocrinology is concerned. So for the purpose of convenience, I have divided this entire session into two parts. In part one, we are going to discuss about the anatomy and physiology of hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. In the second part, we are going to discuss about the HPO axis proper and its regulation. To begin with, we are going to orient ourselves to neuroanatomy, right? So I want all of you to focus on this particular diagram right over here. Now, as you know that we have got, so this structure, I want everyone to focus over here. Now, this structure I'm marking on the screen is hypothalamus, which is connected to the pituitary gland by the help of a stalk, which is also called infundibulum, right over here. And then we have got the pituitary gland right over here, which has got two lobes, anterior and posterior. Now, the hypothalamus is like CEO of a company, and the name of the company is called endocrine system. And the pituitary gland is like COO or Chief Operating Officer. Now, hypothalamus basically controls the function of the pituitary gland, and pituitary gland controls the function of all the endocrine glands of human body. Now, please focus. We have got two more important structure. One is this, right? I have written it right as X, which represents optic chiasma, which is present on the anterior aspect. And then we have got this structure over here, which is called mammillary body. So optic chiasma present optic chiasma is present anterior to the hypothalamus, and mammillary body is present on the posterior aspect of hypothalamus. Now, I want to go in some micro details of the anatomy. Now, please focus on the screen now. Now, as you can see that the hypothalamus is connected to anterior pituitary gland or adenohypophysis with blood vessels. Can you see these blood vessels, right, connecting the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary gland? And these blood vessels has got a name. It is called HPS or hypophyseal portal system. So a portal system or portal circulation connecting the hypothalamus and the hypophysis or pituitary gland, and that's why it is named as HPS. Now, all the hypothalamic hormones, right? All the hypothalamic hormones released after it is being released from the neuroendocrine cells, they enter the HPS or these blood vessels, and through these blood vessels they reach its target organ, which is basically the cells of anterior pituitary gland. And when the anterior pituitary gland, they are acted upon by the hypothalamic hormone, they release their own hormone into the systemic circulation, right? And all the anterior pituitary hormone, they're released into systemic circulation, and we have got a very special vein over here, and they are known as hypophyseal vein. So you have got two important circulation. One is a vascular connection between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary gland. We call it hypophyseal portal system, and another is hypophyseal vein. If you see posterior pituitary gland, okay, unlike anterior pituitary gland, the posterior pituitary gland is connected to hypothalamus by neurons, not by blood vessels. Okay, now you can see this. There is two important nucleus. We have got paraventricular nucleus, which synthesizes a very important hormone called oxytocin, and we have got supraoptic nucleus over here, which releases another important hormone, which is known as the ADH or vasopressin. Now, as you can see, this posterior pituitary gland is connected to hypothalamus with the help of neurons. Now, if you compare these two diagrams, you can clearly understand anterior pituitary gland and the hypothalamus is having vascular connection, and the posterior pituitary gland and the hypothalamus is having neuronal connection. Now, why is that discrimination? Now, why is that so? And the answer lies in embryology. So let us understand the embryology very quickly. Okay, now I want everyone to focus in this picture right now. As you can see, the anterior pituitary gland embryologically originates from Rathke's pouch. Now this is a Rathke's pouch, which is nothing but outpouching from the oropharynx. And as we know, the oropharyngeal mucosa, they contain numerous glands, okay? And the posterior pituitary gland, right, which is, I'm basically, drawing it with this red marker, okay? It is coming from the downward growth from the third ventricle, which is a part of diencephalon. So in gist, in short, the anterior pituitary gland, it is embryologically originated from the oropharynx called Rathke's pouch. Posterior pituitary gland embryologically originated from the neuronal tissue, which is basically the downward growth from the third ventricle. And exactly this is why the anterior pituitary gland is also called adenohypophysis. Adeno means gland, just because the oropharyngeal mucosa contains numerous gland, okay, they are called adenohypophysis. And posterior pituitary gland is also called neurohypophysis because the posterior pituitary gland embryologically originates from nervous tissue or neuronal tissue. Am I clear? Now, and exactly this is why there is a vascular connection between hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary gland, because the glands are usually vascular. And posterior pituitary gland is connected to hypothalamus by neurons because both of them, right, are having, neuronal origin. Now please focus on this diagram right here and you can beautifully appreciate what I am talking. Now this is your oropharyngeal epithelium and this is your outpouching from it called Rathke's pouch. And there I have got downward growth from the third ventricle, okay, and it forms the posterior pituitary gland. Now can you see this and this outpouching ascends upward, and there's a downward growth from the third ventricle and they conjoin together and forms anterior and posterior pituitary gland respectively. The structure right over here is known as optic chiasma, and this MB, this is your mammillary body. So this is your front and this is your this is the anterior part and this is your posterior part. Am I clear? Am I clear with this diagram and entire embryology, because it is super important as far as how the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland functions. Another very important thing I want to just focus over here, and I want everyone to please focus on this particular diagram. And this is a diagram depicting the neuronal connection between the hypothalamus and the posterior pituitary gland. There is a subtle difference between the physiology of anterior pituitary gland and the posterior pituitary gland. Now the anterior pituitary hormones, they are synthesized, they are stored, and they're released from the cells of anterior pituitary gland itself. But it is not like that in posterior pituitary gland. Now, all the posterior pituitary hormones, they are synthesized in the hypothalamus and they are then transported to the synaptic terminals and they're stored inside the synaptic vesicles and they're released on demand. What I mean to say is very simple and very important. Now, please focus. Now, as you all know, all the hypothalamic as well as the pituitary hormones, they are peptide hormones, right? That means essentially they are proteins, they are chains of amino acids. Now, all the hormones, they're released, they're basically all the posterior pituitary hormones, they're synthesized in the hypothalamus, inside this, inside the cell body, and then they are transported through the axon, we call it axonal transport, through the exoplasm, and they are stored inside this synaptic vesicles, right? And they're released on demand. On the contrary to that, if I talk about the anterior pituitary gland hormones, right? If I talk about the anterior pituitary gland, the hormones are synthesized and then stored and then released from the anterior pituitary gland itself. So there is a very subtle and very important difference. And I hope, right, what I hope I have made the axonal transport clear. Okay, so this is very, very important. Now, if I talk about the anatomy of the pituitary gland, let's come to this. Okay, we have got essentially two parts. We have got the anterior pituitary gland over here, and we have got a posterior pituitary gland over here. Now, anterior pituitary gland has got three important subparts or portions. We have got pars tuberalis. So this part is the pars tuberalis right over here. Then it has got pars intermedia over here, and then you have got pars distalis. This part is the pars distalis over here. Now, if you can see this for this diagram here, it is very important. Now, please try to understand this. So this is your hypothalamus over here, then you have got the pituitary stalk, and then you have got the anterior pituitary gland, and then we have got a posterior pituitary gland. Okay, the part over here is optic chiasma, and this part over here is your mammillary body. I hope I can, I made it clear. Now, this is the same thing over here. It has now pituitary gland. It is housed. Okay, can you see this? So pituitary gland is housed within a bony cage, and this is called sella turcica. It is a part of sphenoid, and this part over here, this is your sphenoidal sinus. Can you see this? So this is your sphenoidal sinus, this part over here, and it is filled up with air. Now try to understand that it has got a weight. Now pituitary gland has got a weight of about 0.5 gram. Okay, so so this is very, very important. Now, I want another important concept to be very clear, and that is the concept of pituitary bright spot. Now, often when you see MRI, we can see this, white spot, and this white spot denotes the posterior pituitary gland, and we find it on T1 weighted MRI on sagittal as well as coronal view. And the reason of this white spot is the paramagnetic effect of synaptic vesicles containing ADH or vasopressin. Now this white spot right over here, they basically denotes the posterior pituitary gland, and they also denotes the paramagnetic effect of the synaptic vesicles containing ADH or vasopressin, and this pituitary bright spot or PBP are typically absent in central diabetes insipidus, right? So this is another very important topic I thought I should cover. Now, having said this, now we have got a few, we should know about the hypothalamic as well as pituitary hormones. Now, I told you that the hypothalamus controls the hypothalamic hormones, they control the release and the overall function and the physiology of the anterior pituitary gland. Now, please focus now. We have got let's talk about this one by one. We have got CRH, which is cortisol releasing hormone. They acts on the corticotroph, and which is basically present on the anterior pituitary gland, and when they're acted upon by CRH, they produce ACTH, which basically targets or mediates the function of adrenal cortex. Then we have got TRH or thyroid releasing hormone. They acts on the anterior pituitary gland called thyroid trough, and they release TSH, and TSH essentially controls the endocrine function of thyroid gland. Then we have got GnRH or gonadotropin releasing hormone, which acts on gonadotrophs, and gonadotrophs basically releases two important hormones. One is FSH and there is LH, and they acts on the gonad, which is ovary in case of female and testis in case of male. Then you have got GHRH, which is basically growth hormone releasing hormones. They basically acts on the somatotrophs, which releases growth hormones, right? Then we have got somatostatins, right? They also act on the somatotroph, and they inhibit the somatotroph, and they inhibit the release of growth hormone from the somatotroph. Then you have got dopamine, as you all know, right? Dopamine acts on the lactotroph, and they inhibit the release of prolactin. Okay, now I want you to understand this very important point, that the lactotroph, they're inhibited by dopamine and they're stimulated by TRH, or thyroid releasing hormones. So from this chart, you can essentially, right, you can essentially understand that there are 5 anterior pituitary cells. We have got somatotrophs. Somatotroph has got its twin sister called lactotrophs, right? So somatotroph and lactotroph, they're like twin sisters. Okay, and then I have got corticotroph, thyrotroph, and gonadotroph. Okay, from 5 cells, 6 different hormones are released. Why 6? Because the gonadotroph, they release 2 hormones. One is FSH and another is LH. Am I clear with this? And posterior pituitary gland, they release mainly 2 hormones. One is oxytocin, another is vasopressin or ADH. Okay, so thank you everyone for the patience hearing. Now, in the next session, in the next part of the session, we are going to discuss about the HPO axis proper. I hope you have enjoyed it, and yeah, do let me know in the comments how do you like it, and yeah, if at all you have got any feedback, feel free to write. Have a great day. Bye bye. Peace.